Welcome back, everybody, to our Motzi Shabbos Marathon. So the Gemara now is saying, as we continue 3 lines from the top, so the Gemara now is saying that according to Rav Nachman, less than 10 tefachim could also give a killing blow, so that since Shelley didn't wait for 24 hours, he loses his animal. So Esvei asks the Gemara, Beis Haskila, the place where they stone someone, let's say somebody was Mechal Shabbos b'Fahesia with Hasra and Adam, so he's taken out to be stoned, which we know we push him off a cliff. Hayagavaya shtei kamas. It was the height of 2 statures of men. A stam person is 3 amas, so it's 6 amas high. V'tani Allah v'kaimer shaloi, and his height, because he falls, also his head is his height, Harikan Shalosh. So that's a total of 9 amas, which is 18 tvachim. What do you need 18 tvachim for? If you hold that this chavot even less than 10 tvachim, so the Gemara says, and according to you, that everybody holds there is chavot with 10 tvachim, why did it have to be 18? It's enough 10. So the Gemara says that's not a problem. We want him to die quickly. Love your friend like yourself. Choose him a pleasant death. So the Gemara says, so they make it very high. Make it very high. No, that we don't want to do, Mishim de Manavel, because that would disfigure him, which also would not be Drachel Darchei Noyam. Eisvei. So now the Gemara asks from the din of Makkeh. We know that you have to make a parapet around your house if the house is high 10 tefachim. Ki yipol hanoifel mimenu. So we learn out that you have to be careful to make a fence that people shouldn't fall from your roof. V'loi b'seicha. You don't have to worry if there's a Rishus Harabim above your roof. You don't have to worry that somebody might fall from the Rishus Harabim onto your roof. Ketzad. If the public is 10 tefachim above your roof, and somebody falls from the Rishus Harabim onto your roof, potter. Says the Gemara, if the public is 10 tefachim under your roof, and it falls from your roof to the public below because you didn't make a parapet, chayiv. But wait a second, why only 10 tvachim? If you hold that it's chavoted and less than 10 tvachim, why do you need 10 tvachim? So the Gemara says, you know why you need a 10 tvachim? Because in the parsha of Makkeh, it says that you have to make a parapet around your bias. And if it's not high 10 tvachim, it's not a bias. Amalei shani bias the kol pachas me'asara, anything that's less than 10 tvachim la biasu. Says the Gemara, so then now also it shouldn't be a bias. If it's high 10 tvachim, if you deduct the ceiling and the plaster, the interior of the house is not 10 tvachim, so it's not a bias. If from outside the top of the roof it's 10 tvachim, if you deduct the thickness of the ceiling and the plaster, inside it's not 10, it shouldn't be a house. Amalei, so he says, no, it was normal that they dug deeper the floor of the house, deeper than the walls of the house. So the Gemara says, so then, even if the roof is not 10 tvachim, but the interior, they dug 3 tvachim, the floor deeper, and the roof is only 7 tvachim, so then you should have to have a makkah. Even if, let's say, the roof is only 7 tvachim from the ground, that is 10 tvachim from the inside, and according to you, you should need a makkah in such a case, even if it's 7 tvachim off the ground. So the Gemara switches. No. Nobody holds that this chavot in less than 10 tvachim. However, Elahainu Taima de Rav Nachman. You know why Rav Nachman made Shelley's animal a treifa? Because Sava Mikresa de Tura, from the underbelly of the ox, La'ara, is 4 tvachim. Kama have arba. And Arita did loy kama have, then how much is the irrigation canal? Like we said, it's an amma, it's shita. Ha'asara. That's why it's a treifa. Because from its belly to the ground is 10 tvachim. Ishtakach the kika mechabet me'asaru the mechabet. It hit from 10 tvachim. Says the Gemara, then why does it say that a bar has kedei lahamas 10 tvachim? And according to Shmuel, that means chavata. We're saying now that really it's enough to kill if it's 6 tvachim. B'shita nami sag, it's enough even 6 tvachim. Says the Gemara, that's talking about where it rolls in the bar. And it doesn't fall standing up. Imrei masnisan, the ignadar the bar. So then it has to fall 10 tvachim. Because it's not falling with a height of 4 tvachim. What an interesting piece of Gemara. But we got to just move on. Because we have yet a lot to learn. It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing how much learning we're accomplishing on the beginning of the week. It's unbelievable. A person thinks to himself, what I could do. We're learning now an hour and 4 minutes. A person says, it's amazing what I could do with my time if I use it properly. I'm speaking to myself just as I'm speaking to you. And of course, just to give Yitzi Chizek, it's known that the Stipler Gaon, says 1 hour of learning B'tzar equals 1,000 hours Shaloi B'tzar. Amazing Stipler. Amazing.
That's one to remember.
Yeah, it's amazing. I used to say this, those of veterans from Staten Island will remember that I used to say this. I always gave the Daf Yomi on Yom Kippur in the break between Musaf and Mincha. And I used to always say as a preface, this Stipler, that learning 1 hour B'tzar equals 1,000 hours Shaloi B'tzar. Irving, you remember me saying it? Yeah, Irving remembers. Yeah.
That's exactly what I learned about Amy.
Yeah.
Exactly in that spot.
Now, says the Heilige Mishnah, Bar shel Shnei Shutfin. Here you have a pit that's owned by 2 partners. So here are 2 troublemakers tonight, Shimon and Shelley. They are all a pit in their compadres, their partners. So over Alavarishon, what happened was Shelley was drawing water from the pit with Shimon there, and Shelley says, okay, I'm leaving now. V'loiki seyu, and he doesn't cover it because Shimon is there. V'asheni, and then Shimon leaves v'loiki seyu, then obviously Asheni chayev, because Shelley handed it over to Shimon, and Shimon dropped the ball. So the Gemara says, I don't understand. How do you have a bar of 2 shutfin? Imrei, bar shel shnei shutfin heichim mishkachas. How do you have a bar of 2 partners? So the Gemara says, Hanicha isvir lan Rabbi Akiva. It's good if you hold like Rabbi Akiva, because, by the way, it picks on Rabbi Akiva because both according to Rabbah and according to Rav Yosef, Rabbi Akiva holds that a bar b'shus yachid is yechayev. So Israel lan Rabbi Akiva dama bar b'shus yechayev. Oh, then it's easy shmizi. They're partners in the bar. They were mafka the area outside of the bar, and they weren't mafka the bar. They both own a courtyard. Ubar shel shneim, and both Shelley and Shimon own the bar. V'yifkiru shusan, they were mafka the area around the bar. V'lo yifkiru bayrin. Ela isvirul on bar b'shus pater. But if you hold that the only bar that you're chayiv for is in bar b'shus rabim, if it's a bar b'shus rabim, how do you have a bar that belongs to two partners? Heichi mishkachas lo chayiv ala b'shus rabim. Where you chayiv, it's in only in b'shus rabim. Or b'shus rabim bar shel shnei shvat heichi mishkachas lo. So you'll say no problem. What happened is Shelley and Shimon commissioned Nachman to dig a bar for them. If they both made a shliach, and they told Nachman to dig it, Karlu, and Nachman did it for them, Shelley and Shimon are off the hook. Ain't shlich l'dvar veira, divrei Arav, divrei Talmud, divrei Mishaymin. Ain't shlich l'dvar veira. Then it's Nachman who's on the hook. The id kara hai chamisha, and if Shelley dug 5, and then v'chai chamisha, and then Shimon dug the other 5, by Shimon making it a bar that's fit for death, Shelley is off the hook. Nistalkulu ma'aserishin. Now, if you'll say that even so they're both chayiv for damages, so Rebbe holds that in that case they're both chayiv for damages, so you could have a boshel shutfin for damages. Hanichel Rebbe l'nizak and mishkachasa, where Shelley does 5, and Shimon does the other 5, so they're partners for damages. El Rebbe u'lamisa, because Shelley didn't do it for Misa, only Shimon did. Ul Rabbanan, who holds that once Shimon digs the other 5, Shelley is off the hook, even for Nizakin. We'll see that machlokes soon. Rabbanan bein l'nisa bein l'zakin heichi mishkachasa. How do you have a bar b'rishus rabim that's a bar of shutfin? Very simple. It's a bar of 9 tefachim, and Shimon and Shelley together dig the 10th tefach. Amar Rebbe Yochanan kigain she'akru shneim chulya b'bas hachas. They dug the last cavity together, v'shlimu l'asar, and completed it to 10 tefach. Now, what's this machlokes between Rebbe and the Rabbanan? My Rebbe and my Rabbanan, the Tanya, we learned in the Brisa, Echad achayfer bar tisha, where Shelley digs 9 tefachim, uba echad v'shlim al-asara, and Shimon completes it to 10. Ha'achron chayiv. According to Rabbanan, Shelley is off the hook for everything, both for damages and for death. Rabbi Aimer, achron lamisa. Shimon is chayiv if the animal dies because he made it roy lamisa. But v'achar shneim l'nizakin. But both Shelley and Shimon are chayiv for damages. Now, Rebbe's pshat is the logical one, because Shelley, when he dug it 5, it was already chayiv in damages. Why should Shelley be off the hook? So my time at Rabbanan, the amakra ki yiftach v'chi yichre. Now we already said that that's a redundancy. Im al psicha chayiv, if you chayiv for just opening it, al kriya like kol shcheit, el lahavi kaira achar kaira, to tell us that if Shimon digs after Shelley, shesi like ma'aserishin, he removes Shelley's first action, and he's chayiv, says Gemara, Rebbe Yamalach, Hano mitzvah tzricha kedamrina. We already had a drasha from ki yiftach v'chi yichre, that you're chayiv for iskei psicha and kriya, even if you dig in the Rishus Harabim. So the Gemara says, Rabbanan nami mitzvah tzricha. They also need the drasha for that, or the other drasha that I might think that if you open it, it's enough to cover it, but if you dig it, you have to fill it up. Ela hainu time of the Rabbanan. The reason why Rabbanan hold that Shelley is off the hook, because amakra ki yichra ishbar, and it says it in the singular. Echad v'lo shnayim. Now, what does Rebbe do with that drasha? V'Rebbe ha'umabay like ki yichra ishbar, but you're not chayiv if your animal digs a bar. V'lo sharbar. Rabbanan say it says ki yichra ishbar twice. Trei ishbar ksive. Rebbe, it's interesting. This is used sometimes. He says the second one is not extra. Because ID, the cos of high. It wants to be symmetrical, and since it says by the first one ki yichri yishbar, so the second one it also says ki yichri yishbar. Now I want to tell you how fantastic this Gemara is. You shouldn't miss out on the opportunity. This is a shas yesod. We find ID being used on a pasuk. Now, normally ID is used on a Mishnah, which makes sense because they learn Torah Baal Peh, and when it's symmetrical, it's easier to remember. But to use ID on a verse in the Torah is much more difficult because Torah you learn inside. So therefore, that's why they say that it's not because of remembering it, but because the symmetry is beautiful. Like, you have one chair in the living room on this angle and the other chair on this angle. There's beauty and symmetry. And it's because of Lahagdil Torah Uladira. Now, says the Gemara, so it says Ishbar. How do you know the first one is Chayiv? The second one is Chayiv. Maybe the first one is Chayiv. At least in the case of injury. Let's say the one who starts it, because if Shelley didn't, even by death, if Shelley didn't dig the 5, there wouldn't be 10. Says Gemara, and we dash in the one who makes the Sher Misa. Says Gemara, but we learn out from Amesi Eloi something else. We need it for the drush of Rava. The Amar Rava, for Rava says, Sharp Sule Amikdash. This is an interesting case. Mel has a shar that was dedicated and then got a blemish. Now, it retains its sanctity to certain things. For example, you could redeem it, but you can't sell it at the market. You have to treat it with respect. You're not allowed to work with it. You're not allowed to have its milk. So one of the halachas is that if it dies, you can't redeem it to give it as dog food or sell it to a guy. So therefore, we learn out that sharp psulei hamikdashim shenafal labar, a sharp psulei mikdashim that falls into a pit and that gets damaged, potter. Shimon is potter. Shenema v'ameis yi'alai. It's only one who you could benefit from the carcass. B'misha ameis shaloi emrei. And not a shar mikdashim. Shar mikdashim, the mace is not worth anything because you can't redeem it to give it to the dogs or sell to a guy. So you see that mace yaloi is not extra. Says well, it doesn't have to be extra. But we learn from the meaning of the words. The Bahu David Misa Askinan, that the one who causes it to kill, that's the second one, Shimon, is what the pasuk is talking about, and not the first one. Now, Tan Rabbanan, Echad HaChayfer Bar Asar. If what happens is that Shelley digs it 10 tvach, Uba Achav is Shlima L'chaf, and Abi digs it to 20 tvach, Uba Achav is Shlima L'shloishin, and then Shimon, our champion, digs it to 30, Kulan Chayav. Because here it's different. Everybody made it Roy Lamisa. Says the Gemara, V'raminu, Echad HaChayfer Bar Asar. If Shelley dug it 10 tvachim, or Ba'acha V'sayid V'kayid, and Shimon came and plastered it and made drawings in it, Ha'achron Chayiv. So the Gemara says it would seem to be that what's the machlokes over here as we turn to Nun Aleph Amud Beis. Says the Gemara, Lema ha-Rebbe ha-Rabbanan. It must be that one is going according to Rebbe. Rebbe says that just like when they both made it l'nizakin, they're both chayiv. So here, where they both make it l'misa, they're both chayiv. One is according to Rabbanan that holds that the last one, the Shimon, who plastered it, he's misalik even for misa, the act of the one before him. Says the Gemara, no. Amrav Zid Hava Rabbanan. Even though Rabbanan say that if Sheli did 5 and Shimon did 5, only Shimon is chayiv for nizakin. Ad kan loy kamer Rabbanan achron chayiv elahechid deloy Bava Kama shir misa. That's only if the first one didn't make a shear that it could kill. Aval hechid Bava Kama shir misa. But if Sheli made 10 and Abi made 20 and Shimon made it 30, so each one, the first one also made a shir misa. Afilu Rabbanan moeded the kulon chayav. Then why in the case where if Sheli did 10 tefachim and Shimon plastered it and made designs, only Shimon is chayiv. V'asayid v'kayid the Bava Kama shir misa. Sheli did it 10 tefachim and yet v'ketoni achron chayiv, and yet it says that only Shimon is chayiv. You know why? Because it's going according to Rav, that you're chayiv for the hevel. And the pit initially was, the width was more than the depth. And therefore there's no hevel. And when Shimon plastered it and made designs, he made it narrower, and therefore now there is hevel. Imre says the Gemara, that when Sheli did it, there wasn't enough foul air, lemisa, as Taisva says, its width was more than its depth. And Shimon, by plastering it and making the designs, made it more narrow and made it right to have foul air. Ikir Damre, Amrav Zvid, Hava Rebbe. Both are going to Rebbe. So Achtik Tani Kulan Chayavim Shaper. That which it says they're all chayiv is good, because the one that dug 10, the one that dug 20, and the one that did 30, they're all chayiv, just like both would be chayiv for nizakin if one did 5 and one did 5. Hadik Tani Achron chayiv, that's talking about that beforehand, Kigain Shaloya Hevel, Loy Lamisa Veloy Nizakin. It didn't have enough foul air to do anything, even damage. And Shimon came by making the plastering and the designs, Bein Lamisa, Bein Lizakim. Now, new case. Amarava. Here, the pit was 9 tefachim. And Shimon put a rock of 1 tefach next to the pit, so that when the animal stepped on the rock, he fell into the bar and died. And completed it to 10. And according to Rebbe, they're both chayiv for nizakin, and Shimon is only chayiv for death. And according to Rabbanan, Shimon is only chayiv for both. So the Gemara says pshita. So the Gemara says, well, maybe not. Mao the same. I might say, lamata, when Shimon digs the last tefach, so he added hevel on the bottom, dahavla didei kakatale. But here, when he made the rock, he didn't add any hevel. The rock was outside. Avalamala deloy havla didei kakatal. I might say, we don't throw the book at Shimon. Aimaloi kamash malon. Now, Boy Rava, let's say Shimon dug deeper tefach, making it 10 tefachim. or he put a rock, and then he took out the layer that he dug, and he removed the rock. So by Rav Tom Tefach, v'silik avon of Mao. Mi amrina, do we say Maida Ovid Shoklei? What he put, he removed. So what he put, he removed, and now Sheli is chayiv. Oy dilma nistalku ma'iserish. No, once he, and this is going according to the Rabbanan, that according to the Rabbanan, once he made the tefach deeper or the rock higher, he's chayiv in both death and nizakin. Now when he removes his tefach, we want to say that Sheli is back to being chayiv to nizakin. Do we say nistalkum ma'aserishin v'kamalei kulei b'rishusei? Do we say ma'ida ovid shoklei? What he did, he removed, and Sheli is chayiv. Or do we say that once he added the tefach or added the tefach height, nistalkum ma'aserishin, Sheli is out of the picture. V'kamalei kulei b'rishusei, and the whole bar is his responsibility. That even though he removes the 10 tefachim, but now he's chayiv at least for damages. Take a Tishbi Yataritz, Kush's Rabbi. We don't have an answer for this. Now we're going to mix in some water to make it interesting. Amar Rabba Bava Kama, Amar Shmuel. Amar Rabba Bava Kama, Amar Shmuel bar Marta, Bo Shmeina. The pit is 8 tvachim, Shimon dug a pit 8 tvachim, but of those 8 tvachim, 2 tvachim had water. Bo Shmeina, umehem shnei tvachim mayim, chayiv. Even if the animal dies, Shimon is chayiv. My timer, kol tefach demaya, every tefach of water is ketrei de yabasha dami, is like 2 of dry. So therefore, 8, 2 of water, each 2 of water is 2 apiece, so that's 10. Says the Gemara, well, does that work if it's only 1 tefach of water? You have 9 deep and 1 tefach of water. Do we say, since it's not enough water, it's not 2 tefachim of water, less behavla, it doesn't have enough foul air. Or maybe adarabba. Instead of 8, it's 9 tefachim, and the last tefach is double, it does have foul air. What about like this? Bo Shiva, it's 7 tvachim. Umehem shloisha tvachim mayim, and there's 3 tvachim of water. Now, if you say those 3 tvachim are like 6, so then you have 10 tvachim. Mao, mi amrina kevin nefishe maya tvei, since you have a lot of water, is behavla. Or iduma kevin doloi umkale, it's only 7 tvachim deep, less behavla. So again, take a tishbi atatz kushes v'bayis. Now, and Rabbi say, thank you for your patience. I want you to know that for every word we get reward. It's really amazing. Now, Boy Minei Rav Shizbi Merabba. Rav Shizbi asked from Rabba, Hirchivu Mao. Here's an interesting case. Shimon's a Heberman. Sheli made a bar, and Shimon widens it. Amalei harimiyad havla. So Shimon says, what do you mean? I did a favor. By widening it, I made the ear less foul. Amalei adarabe harikirav hezeka. You brought it closer to the damage. El amar of Ashi nirze anan. And we're going to learn now the easy way. If the animal fell from the other side, not the side that Shimon made wider, so therefore it didn't fall because of Shimon. So Shimon could say the only thing I did was make it less foul. Harimir Havla, and therefore Sheli would be chayiv. But if he died because he fell from the side that Shimon widened, so Shimon made it that he should fall in, then harikiri ve'ezeka. Economically, others say this more clear the way I explained it. If it fell from the side that Shimon widened, Shimon made it closer that the animal damaged. Maybe if it was the way Shelley made it, the animal would have missed it. But it fell from the other side, so that Shimon had nothing to do with it. Adirabba, Shimon just made it less toxic. Harimiyat Havla, and Shimon is not Chaya. Now, remember we said, as I pointed out to Taisvus, that a bar whose width is more than its depth doesn't have Hevel. And therefore, according to Rav, you're not Chayiv, and according to Shmuel, if there's cushion on the bottom, you're not going to be Chayiv. What about if its width and depth are the same? Emma, Borsha Umka Kirachba. If its depth and width are the same. Rabba Rabbi Yosef Dirmi Travayo, Mishmei de Rabba Bava Chana, Dama Mishmei de Rabbi Mani. It's a machloikis. Chad Amar La'olam Yesh Ba'hevel. It has foul ear Ache Rachba Yeser Aloimka, until the width is more than the depth, like Tyson said on the top. The Chad Amar La'olam Ein Ba'hevel. It doesn't have foul ear until the depth is more than the width. So again, the first opinion is that it has hevel if it's equal, and it doesn't have it's no good until its width is more than its depth. One says that it has hevel until its depth is more than its width, but are they saying the same thing?
Sounds like the same thing.
Yeah, it's the same thing. It's the same thing. You're just saying it two different ways. That's why Tysus quotes it and doesn't say that it's going only according to one opinion.
Perfect square, the first one says.
Again, if the bar is a square, Rabbi Rav Yosef Dim Tvai Mishmei Rabbi Bava Chana, Dama Mishmei Ramani, Chad Amali Olam Yesh Ba Hevel. If it's a square, it has Hevel. Ache Rachba Yeser Alamka, until its width is the same, is more than its depth. No, it isn't the same, right? It isn't the same. So according to the first one, if it's a perfect square, it has hevel until its width is more than its depth. And the other one says, La'olam ein ba hevel, that if it's a perfect square, it doesn't have foul here, ache oimka yasser al rachba. So they're arguing about a perfect square. Now, says Gemara Vaita, getting back to Shelley, and we're almost finished, by the way, Rabbi said. And by the way, just to give you a scoop, the Mishnah Yomis tonight is not hard. Just to give you a scoop, as we're getting ready to move into Ksuvas. Actually, we just learned the whole second parak of Ksuvas in the Chak last week, so we got a little jump on Ksuvas. And about a month ago, we learned the first parak in Ksuvas. Says the Gemara Vaita, Over olav arishon v'lo kiseyu. If Shelley and Shimon own a bar b'shutfus, and Shelley was drawing water with Shimon there, Shelley drew the water, and he left, he didn't cover it, and Shimon, when he left, he didn't cover it, we said Shimon is chayiv. So the Gemara says, V'rishon me'emas mifter. When does Shelley get off the hook? So Rabba Rabbi Yosef Dimrei Travayim Mishmei de Rabba Bava Chana. Rabba and Rabbi Yosef, who say both in the name of Rabba Bava Chana, the Amar Mishmei de Reb Mani. Chad Omar, there's two versions here. Chad Omar Mishamichai Mishtamish, that Shelley is off the hook when he leaves Shimon still using it. V'chad Omar Mishiyim Salai Dilyai, that Shelley is only off the hook when he gives him the cover. So the Gemara says, Kitanoi. It depends on the following machlokes Tanoi. Hamad l'mayim min habar. If Shelley is drawing water from the pit, Oba chaveiroi, and his partner comes, va'amaloi hanachli, leave it, va'aniyed l'mayim, kevan shanichai mishtamesh, when he leaves him using it, potter. Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov Aimer Mishiyim Shalai Dilyai. He's only exempt, Shelley is only off the hook, when he gives him the cover. So the Gemara says, but my kamiflagi, what are they arguing about? So now, Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov Savar Yesh Breira. Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov says, even though they're partners, we say retroactive clarification that Shelley was using his water, and Shimon was using his water. So, Haimidi Dei Kamamale, Shelley was using his water, and Shimon was using, Shimon, when he was using the water, he was using solely his own water. So therefore, since Shimon, when he uses the water, he's not a shoyel on Shelley's part, so therefore he's not chayiv for Shelley's part. And therefore, each one remains chayiv for his part, unless Shelley gives to Shimon the cover, giving him the full responsibility. While Rabbanan Savre, Rabbanan hold Ein Breira. And therefore, when Shimon is using the water, he's using his water and he's borrowing Shelley's water. And therefore, since he's a shayel on Shelley's part, he's chayav for both parts, even if Shelley doesn't give him the cover. And Amar Ravina v'ozdu l'tamayu. They go according to the reasoning. Ditnan hashutfim shenadru hanazeh mizeh. If Shelley and Shimon said that they're not allowed to benefit from one another, asur l'kanei l'chatzor, they can't go into their joint courtyard, because the Rabbanan hold Ein Breira, and therefore when Shimon enters, he's entering also into Shelley's part, and he's not allowed to benefit. Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, I know they could go in because zeh nichnas l'seich shalai, v'zeh nichnas l'seich shalai. That means the Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov holds a breira that when Shimon uses it, he's using only his part. V'may kamiflagi, Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov savar yesh breira, ha'ilin and nafshei ayil, v'ha'ilin and nafshei ayil. Each one is going into his part. Rabbanan savar ein breira, and therefore Shimon can't go in because he said he's not allowed to benefit from Shelley, and when he goes in, he's using Shelley's part as well. Okay, Rabbi Isai, I want to remind you that tomorrow night shir is at 8 o'clock. Also want to remind you, I put already on YouTube a shir for Vayechi from 3 years ago. You can check that out. And we're going to learn now the Mishnah Yomis.